Thus far I've held my undisturbed career, prepared for rancour, steeled 'gainst selfish fear. This thing of rhyme I ne'er disdained to own. Though not obtrusive, yet not quite unknown, my voice was heard again, though not so loud, my page, though nameless, never disavowed, and now at once I tear the veil away, cheer on the pack, the quarry stands at bay, unscared by all the din of Melbourne's house, of Lamb's resentment, or by Holland's spouse, of Geoffrey's harmless pistol, Hallam's rage, Edina's brawny sons, and brimstone page. Our men in buckram shall have blows enough, and feel they too are penetrable stuff. And though I hope not hence unscathed to go, who conquers me shall find a stubborn foe. This is week 42, and that was one of the closing remarks in English Bards and Scotch Reviewers. So wow, he's pissed. So this is more Byron. More pissed. This is a continuation of last week's piece, which was near the beginning of this how do I want to phrase this? It's a really, really, really long Facebook post by today's standards. Man, he goes on and on for quite a bit. And so this last section here kind of highlights some of the more important aspects about this piece, which is that it was anonymously written, but kind of like not. So this section specifically makes reference to the fact that, I mean, he's not putting his name on this, but people know who's writing this. At least the people he's talking about will know who's writing this. And he does a fair few name drops here. He makes reference to Melbourne and Lamb. So one of Lord Byron's more famous romances was with Caroline Lamb, who was wife to William Lamb, the Viscount of Melbourne, who was a very famous Prime Minister of Britain at one point in his life. Not yet, not when this was written, and advisor to Queen Victoria. So quite a personality. So what I'm not sure of here is, so this was published in 1809. So it's unclear whether or not he had met Caroline Lamb to me yet. I did a little bit of research and couldn't find a heck of a lot. His Lord Byron's publicized scandal and affair with Caroline Lamb was in 1812. So it's possible that they met. He also named drops Holland, who was an Earl of Holland, Henry Fox, and he was another writer, but also famous for holding lots of high society gatherings of persons of note. Samuel Rogers, other poets of this time. So it's possible that Byron had crossed paths maybe with any of these people in person, but it's also possible that he hasn't met Holland. This is early in his career, and it could just be he knows the people writing for the Edinburgh Review, which was a magazine that reviewed poetry, and reviewed is maybe a bit generous. They kind of just would shit on various poets. And he makes reference to that later in that section. He says Edina's brawny sons. And Edina, I didn't realize this, I looked this up, that was a nickname for Edinburgh. I don't know if it's Latin. I feel like I saw somewhere that's like... what was it? At the time it was referred to as like the second Athens or something like that. So Edina is in reference to Edinburgh, where this review was written. Another name he drops is Geoffrey, Lord Francis Geoffrey, who famously fought a duel with Thomas More in 1806 because he had written some nasty stuff about him. And the harmless pistol dig is at the fact that the duel was broken up by the police, and Geoffrey's pistol was found empty. And then he later went on to become friends with Thomas More. And this was kind of the thing at the time. And it was, lots of bluster and drama, but not a heck of a lot of substance behind these words. So when it came time to really put your money where your mouth is, a lot of times these things would fizzle. These duels would fizzle and stuff. So, and Byron was similarly involved with some of these types of things later on after this piece was written. But he certainly liked to stir the pot with a lot of these people, and challenges were issued, but Byron was able to weasel his way out of a lot of those encounters. But yeah. And then by this little section, this isn't the very end of the entire piece, but I thought it just ended so nicely with that kind of bring it on moment of like, he knows, like, the gloves are off. There's no going back from this, and this really is a turning point for him as a person. He's young. He had written some poetry, and this is really his kind of like, he's choosing to descend to the level of this kind of really petty drama, which was, common at the time, in this field at least. And he makes the choice, and then he really comfortably lives in that space for the rest of his life, pretty much. Likes to be the center of attention, likes to be the dramatic, scandalous type of person. So yeah, this is a fun one. So I continue to this has been really great working on these pieces because I've continued to get some insight into this time period, and I'm gonna take this time to plug again. I'm doing a play in November, opens November 3rd, Arcadia, at the Hatbox Theater in Concord. It's getting closer, and I'm getting really, really, really excited about the performances starting. So yeah, the rehearsal process is ramping up. So this has been a fun kind of secondary outlet for that kind of learning exercise, and I'm learning a lot about it, and learning to hate it. I'm really learning to hate a lot of these people. Like, man, it's one thing to not like someone and like take issue with what someone's saying, but it's funny because you see this kind of stuff and it's like, we haven't come very far, have we, as a species? I mean, this is the same kind of stuff that we're doing right now with writing and commenting on Facebook with, whatever social or political issue is being talked about at the moment. And the only difference is that the language is less pretty and grammatically correct. So we've actually regressed. So, yeah. It's been interesting to get this kind of window into the past and see that, wow, we've certainly not advanced beyond this kind of pettiness. But Arcadia will show that there's a fair amount of hope for human beings yet, because for all of this kind of pettiness, there really is a lot of great, cool stuff. And when we get back to Shakespeare in a few weeks, I'm excited to dive back into that, because, if I ever need a pick-me-up for feeling bad about the state of the world, reading a little Shakespeare helps a lot. So, yeah, this was English Bards and Scotch Reviewers. Next week, I will be doing an excerpt from Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, which is a work that Byron wrote part of and then wrote part of a little later in his life. I'm going to be doing a bit from the beginning part that he wrote a little bit after this. So I want to say like 1810, 1811. It's this kind of, just a little sneak peek of it, it's this kind of, it's kind of like some of the stuff he's going to write later, where there's this kind of transparent protagonist in like the Byron role, like him, and as this hero that goes on a journey, and yeah, he kind of thinks highly of himself there. So that'll be. I think I'm excited to work on that and get some more insight to that time in his life. So yeah, thanks for watching. Happy Sunday. See you next week.